Hi, it's me again with Corel Draw Tips and Tricks, and I've been working on this for a while. But he wants these items filled in where the if you didn't watch the other videos, he wants these items filled in. He's going to cut this out of wood. Some of these parts are just going to fall apart or burn off because they're so little, and some of them, like we had in the first video, are just going to leak. My suggestion would be to draw this whole thing over. So I'm going to Control G and group this guy together. And then these two are smaller. So let's get that one, move it out of the way, Control G to group it together. Really what I should have done is let's hit the plus key on the keyboard so we can kind of get it like he has it. But this would be my suggestion, and then just delete all these other ones. And you wouldn't really have to delete them, but I would delete them and then make sure you have a good clean. We could actually look at the heart one that we have grouped together and see if it's pretty cool. And this might not work. But so this one was the one on the bottom, this one was the one on top. Matter of fact, I should have left the one that was dead top center, but we can rotate this guy to get it pretty much dead top center. And I would leave some space right there. I'm going to show you why in just a second. Now on these, we want to touch them. And we really need to see what it would look like. So I'm going to I'm going to Control D and make a duplicate. And I'm going to move the center to about the center of the bird's mouth and see if, yeah, we're going to get a little bit too wide. Well, there's actually another one there. So we need to go a little bit more to the top of his head and then just kind of look at it. Maybe a little bit down, maybe between his eyes. And we want it centered. It's kind of hard to visualize it till you can get too close. And then just, let's get rid of this one and make a duplicate, Control D, and just rotate it around and see if that would work. And I think it's going to work. So what I would suggest doing, let's just start over, Control D and make a duplicate. And we want these two, okay, see I've got an angle already of 294. That always kind of causes a problem. I'm going to nudge it out of the way for a second. Whoop. I'm going to left click and have no fill. And then I'm going to duplicate those colors and make a new one. So I'm going to get my eyedropper tool and get that green and fill in that and then nudge it over. I hit page down. Then I'm going to take that yellow, and it's just a standard yellow, so I don't have to really take a sample. I'm going to go ahead and take a sample though, because it's his artwork. And then fill that one in with yellow, nudge it over, and the next one is blue. And we can just take the eyedropper tool and grab that blue. And what I did by doing this is I made a brand new symbol that is now at 0, 0 up top. And there's no lines, which I think he would really, unless he's going to cut it out, we could add lines, make sure they're hairlines if he's going to, and they are. So now, Control D and make a duplicate and move the rotation to the center. I'm going to have to zoom in here. And if you have no interest in this, just quit watching. And then let's rotate it to about where we want them to touch. So we want 27 degrees, let's say. Let's see if this works. So let's group this together, Control G. Move the center rotation to the center of his eyes and rotate it 27 degrees. I didn't make a duplicate. Control D, 27 degrees. And that's too much, or not enough. Let's go 28 degrees. Let's go 29. We just barely want them touching on this one. There we go. I'm pretty sure they're touching. Now, let's go 28 and a half. Now, we'll have to change those lines. I'll show you in just a second. Control D again, and if you can't add, just go plus 28.5. Control D. And what it's doing is putting a new, maybe more symmetrical plus 28.5. And then you could actually make this one smaller or leave it big, because we just ended up being perfect and we're almost there of touching the bird. So in this one, in this particular case, we could just make this one a little bit bigger. We want it touching the bird. I think that looks cool. Now we can take this one, Control D, and rotate it a negative 28.5. Control D, and we're not quite there either. So we're gonna make this bottom flat, and he might not even want this. This is just suggestion. So we don't even need this one. And then the center ones, we'll keep that first one. But what we want to do, and I realize this is going to be a long video, and I apologize, but and also if you make them kind of relatively the same size, be a lot easier to, when you cut them out. He's going to cut these out into individual pieces of wood. Now, if we hold down the Alt key, we can slip through there, and anything it touches, it will delete. But you can't really do that on these. Now, on this one, we want a big space. So let's get rid of this one for a second and just nudge it out of the way. We want a big space on this, because we'll Control D and duplicate. And the good thing about this, we can go right from his eyes. And if I was going to do this for real, I would have put indexing lines up. I'm going to make sure I group this thing together. Control G, and let's move the rotation of his eye. I would have put indexing lines at the start. Come on, and hit P, and you can see, and then hit P and move that indexing line up to his eyeball. It will help you center it, because it should snap to the indexing lines, or get you relatively close. Now we're going to see how far we need to move this one. We actually want spaces on this one. So this is it. Let's change this to 0. Okay. And then let's rotate this guy. We want spaces. So let's go 45 degrees. So let's back up, Control D, 45 degrees, Control D, Control D. Now, we're not going to have as many flowers, but I think this is important to do it this way. Minus 45, Control D, Control D. Now we're touching here, and we don't really want to, so we can actually move this one just back a little bit. So we want some spaces in here. Now I'm going to use I saved that top one, so I'm going to use the Alt key and select through there and delete all that. Whoop, I deleted the part of the bird. So let's just delete this real quick. And I should have already done this pre-hand for you, so you don't have to sit and watch this. But what I'm thinking is going to happen, it's going to be a lot cooler looking and a lot less cutting out, because that centerpiece is going to be, you know, if you don't ever hit the X when you're doing this, you get the shape tool. But I'm going to show you, it'll be just a minute, and I'm going to show you how it's going to look if you made the inside piece the whole thing. Now, remember, we nudged it. So I'm going to Control G and group this and nudge it right back. Now we want a little space there, so we're actually going to make this one smaller by holding down the shift key so it'll grow from the center. That looks pretty good. Control D and make a duplicate, make the center rotation, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's not perfect bird. Now this one we want quite a bit of space, so we're going to go 45 degrees again. Control D, and don't have really room for another one, but we could, and I'm going to show you what I would think to do. Control D again, and we can make this one a small one. So holding down the shift key, it's too small. We just need some space, and then you could actually move it, you know, out from the bird. Now grab this one, Control D, negative 45. Well, I didn't put the center rotation on between our eyes. Negative 45, Control D, and do the same thing with this one. Now it's a totally different look, and I did save the original so I know what it looks like, but hold down the shift key and it'll grow from the center. And you can make it a little bigger, actually move it out. Now what's so cool about this, or I think it is, now you can take your Smart Fill tool and set it on red, and then this will be all one piece to cut out. And that's what it's going to look like. And this will cut out of one type of wood. We can get rid of that. And, well, I do have an original. You know, there's not that much difference. And it's a lot easier to do it this way. You know, they've got some other ones. You could throw in a few more, but this is what the finished product's going to look like. And that red will be all one piece of wood, which will kind of be neat if he's going to cut these out of other pieces of wood. It's going to be a lot of work, my friend, but it might be worth it. Anyway, hope that helped a little bit. Thank you for watching.